Hi guys, I'm Simon. I'm the civil manager, and I'm here with our guest Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm a PhD student here at Queen's in the Renewable Energy Development and Implementation Lab in the Department of Geography.
Perfect, Mark. So I'm going to start off just by asking you to walk us through a few of the milestones that have kind of gotten you to where you are in your life and your research.
Okay, well, I guess to start off, I've always been inspired by my mum, who was from Trinidad and Tobago. So we always had this closet growing up, which is full of yogurt containers and all of these typical waste products from a household that we would try to reuse as much as possible. So that led to, I guess, my early initiatives in high school, with then transporting into initiatives here at Queen's University. I had a small sustainability business that focused on worm composting, and bicycle transport. And that evolved into a master's degree in urban planning and now my PhD in energy development.
In your work right now as a PhD student, what would you say is the biggest challenge facing your work or the development of what you're trying to accomplish?
So right now my biggest challenge is trying to identify the barriers to implementing biogas energy in Canada, as it's a proven technology that is widely implemented in Europe, but we seem to have a very limited application here at the moment. I'd say some of the biggest challenges I've identified thus far are awareness, finances, and policy incentives. A few years ago we had something called the Feed-in Tariff program, where the government incentivized new renewable energy programs and initiatives by increasing payout for feeding energy into the grid. So let's say you build a whole bunch of solar panels on your house, the government would pay you above market rate electricity rates for the energy you feed into the grid. Now that program has been finished, so the incentives and support programs for new biogas projects are in limbo essentially. But if the government, say on a smaller scale, maybe at the municipal or provincial level, could devise a scheme for incentivizing optimized biogas energy, say for high energy potential sites, I think that would be a good way to move forward. As you know, these facilities are very geographic dependent. If you build one close to the city of Ottawa, you'd have a very different environmental profile from, say, building it in Kincardine, Ontario, or Bancroft, a bit more rural areas.
Right. So I just wanted to go and talk more broad spectrum and how the government treats climate issues in general. Because recently in the news we heard about the announcement of there being a climate emergency and kind of the ramifications of that, if you think there are any, and if it really is a meaningful step in the right direction.
So having seen certain government initiatives in the past regarding the Kyoto Protocol, I mean, it's very interesting because during a certain government's time in power that ratified Kyoto, emissions actually rose.
Yeah.
So the government kind of taking a certain stance is good. It's a step, but it needs to take actual action. Otherwise, it's really a bit of a subterfuge. For instance, one thing I think of with renewable energy initiatives, like if you look at a house, it's not necessarily the most efficient thing to just slap solar panels on a roof and buy a Tesla. I mean, it's often things that are less exciting, like increasing insulation, replacing windows. So it's necessary that everybody looks at their kind of environmental footprint realistically and invests in their highest impact effort, essentially.
I agree totally. We saw some time ago now with Tesla, when they first came onto the market, Musk's theory was to start with a very attractive design and a high-end design, one that got people excited and interested in a technology that was otherwise considered not fit for market or not feasible, which was electric cars, which we now see today as being essentially ubiquitous. Many companies are adopting electric cars. Some are even moving to have all electric cars by some target deadline of 2030, for example. So do you see homes taking a similar path?
Back in Ottawa, when I had my construction company, I worked on some $1 million custom green homes, and it was really interesting the kind of technologies that those homes were able to implement. However, you know, some of the things that they would implement are so far beyond the reach of an average consumer. So I think it's necessary that we kind of increase the appeal with these high-end custom homes of these products, and they serve as a very useful trial ground. But also focus on trying to bring some of these ideas and technologies into the mass market, because that is where we can make the biggest difference. And for instance, one big environmental initiative done by the company Walmart was when they converted all of their toothpaste from box toothpaste to just regular toothpaste without the box. And just think of the paper savings for all of those many millions of units. And that's something I see we can achieve if we apply sustainable building technology to the mass market construction field, as well as renovations and home remodeling.
Mm-hmm. Based on having houses that are energy efficient and focusing technology towards being extremely sustainable, I'd like to bring up the Earthships project that you gave us some insight into. So, running off of our script here again, Earthships are an intelligent way to minimize the impact of living on the environment, incorporating recycled materials and smart uses of solar and thermal technology. However, for the most drastic changes in lifestyle, housing is either per se unfeasible or undesirable in the general public's eye. So how do you think we can integrate some of the ideas in these homes, which are a great kind of industry leading example of being super efficient, and kind of incorporate those into the average person's home or the average person's lifestyle to lower our overall environmental impact?
I guess the important thing to realize with energy, homes, and Earthships is that there's no silver bullet solution to anything. And we can take certain lessons from an Earthship type home and apply it to urban areas. And having been involved in a few different home construction types is really interesting, as you can do things like straw bale construction, advanced framing techniques, structurally insulated panel builds. There's about 10 to 20 different building solutions that can be applied to an urban area. And there's all sorts of ways to retrofit current urban homes into passive homes, which is where they have kind of a net zero impact on the environment.
Great.
I believe home biogas is an interesting concept, but it more applies to the developing world where people are burning other kinds of biomass, such as wood in their kitchens, because there are safety concerns and climate concerns for home biogas in Canada, and it perhaps can be used at a few trial sites, but until its safety and climate viability can be proven, I'd be hesitant to recommend it being applied to a home setting in Canada.
Right. I wanted to ask you, from using grocery store waste for worm composting, which was some of your earlier research, your work has seen innovative ways to recycle and kind of reuse what most people would think is just outright trash. So what other sustainable technologies and projects should people who are perhaps new to the field of knowledge of sustainability and low environmental impact, where should they start?
I would say start looking at the existing communities that have applied kind of really next level sustainability innovation. I can think of the BedZ project in England. There's a great project in Calgary for a net zero development. And look at the city of Ottawa, the Windmill City development, which is a new brownfield development in the city of Ottawa, right in the center. And that's been a really interesting project in terms of its sustainability, integrating native knowledge and experience, and trying to innovate a new community with environmental best practices.
Okay, so that's going to wrap up our interview with Mark. We'd like to thank him for coming and speaking to QSDT today about his research and his various expert opinions with regards to sustainable technology. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And stay tuned for further episodes of our speaker series.